There's the sun and the moon when the sky's looking blue. Light is catching your eye.
Hello, welcome to my channel for Evolved Humans. I am Ms. Day. This is a collective reading. This is a little bit strange because it's almost like I got 3 different little messages. And it's also, I get this feeling that I feel like this is a moment of being out of balance and feeling really chaotic, maybe even. And it's like, I just feel like they're trying to tell you you're out of balance. Okay. So the first image I got was sort of someone, you're definitely awakened, going through your journey, figuring out what you're going to do with it out here. And I think that at the moment, because you're awakened, it's almost like you're speaking it out, which is right, because that makes sense. That's how we process, especially. And I think you're talking to people but you're getting things back that are, it's more like you're getting back doubt and deflecting, like they're deflecting it back. Like it's not being received as you're speaking out these things. And I think you're speaking out things as you're learning them, things that excite you. And I think that you're also speaking out like in question forms. I don't know, which is also genius. Like that's, okay. So I got this feeling instantly. If you're doing that, it's like, it makes me think, okay, so I just was wondering if this was going to make sense, and I feel like I see it now, because I would do one-on-one personal training, and do yoga with people, Pilates, like pain relief, and also self-connection stuff for this, obviously. And one of the things that I would tell them, so like yoga, I know this sounds off, but it's in, because I'm talking about something physically, about your physical vehicle, but like this connection that you have is physical. So this really ties in. So like in yoga, there are 2 reasons that yoga is coming to mind. One of them I'll mention in a second, probably in a second, maybe. Okay. Anyway, this one, I would start them. And let's say I was going to work with someone for like 12 sessions, and I would work with them and be like, okay, first of all, it's all going to sound chaotic. It's all going to sound like I'm throwing a whole lot of weird stuff on you, and I'm telling you these strange little tedious things matter, and you're not going to have a reason to think it matters. And that's okay. Like you don't have to feel the emotional acceptance of the information that I'm going to put on you. But I can't force emotional acceptance in another human, no matter what. Like you can't force that. And because we don't have to be emotionally accepting of information that we're physically aware of. That's one of my foundational truths as a medium that keeps me safe, especially if I'm clearing a house and I'm really freaked out about what I'm seeing in my own mind. Because oftentimes, I get creepy dreams. If I don't have a grip on my fear and I don't see something low coming in, I can see really creepy, morbid dreams because I grew up on sci-fi. So that's why, I think. Also, and the History Channel. Okay, so anyway, the feeling I got with this is when I would start someone on yoga, it was like there are 3 things about yoga that are coming in. And it's like, at first I thought, 1 thing, 2 things, 3. And they're all 3 different things that tie it. This is so odd. Okay, but fun. I would say yoga's main purpose physically, breath control is huge. That's a huge reason why it's a big deal if you're a medium, because breath control gives you literal control over your vehicle. It takes training to do so, but it is how you adapt your vehicle into being in your control physically. Okay, so when I would start someone in yoga and they've never done this before, or even if they had, I would just start everybody at the same spot. And because I wanted to know where they struggled, and I wanted them to know where they struggled, because sometimes they didn't know because they were physically aware of it in the back of their mind at all times that they had like pain in their knee or something, but they were not emotionally accepting of their own power to change it. So I would just tell you, if you were just starting yoga, especially if you were my members, and once that gets reopened up, then you get to do the videos again. But it improves the functioning, the rotation of every single joint throughout your body can be improved with yoga. That's what makes yoga so cool for flexibility. It's not that we're all meant to be a pretzel. It's that yoga pinpoints every single joint, if you know enough of it. So anyway, at first, like I would want to align their body because we don't know if you have to have pain. Maybe you're just misaligning yourself daily and don't know it. So the first thing I would let them know before training their joints and improving the functioning of the rotation of their joints or the functioning of their organs because of their breath control or their circulation, removing whatever. At first, we have to make it supple because you have to loosen and then you rebuild a foundation. But you can't build a foundation based on a mess. You can't be like, there's a mess, that's my foundation. You have to have something solid to stand on at all times. So it's weird because I feel like, see, that's how I learned different levels emotionally, physically, and behaviorally in other people. Because when I would have a session with them, I would start reacting internally myself. So I know people are experiencing that, and it can become overwhelming, especially at first. And like, just remember that if the low frequency had an intention, which I just can't guarantee it does, all I know is that energy is an interaction when there's other energy. Like, that's just all there is. It's an interaction, no matter what. And I wrote this down right before I started this because I feel like if you're going through this, you need to know. You need to know as a medium, while you're interacting with consciousness, no matter what you do with it, there are 3 things that your vehicle is doing at all times. It was before your spiritual awakening. It's doing it now. It's going to continue after it. It is either feeding into the low frequency, which means it's interacting with low frequency information, or it is stagnating, which means it's not evolving, which also means it's not digressing, hopefully, at that moment. Yeah, because it's stagnating, duh. Or it's evolving. So at all times, there is an interaction occurring. So the reason that's so important is because once you become open, once your awakening has happened, it's not that you are suddenly doing a special thing with your third eye, which is a gland throughout the endocrine system, in case you didn't know. I don't call it the third eye. I'm just like mentioning that that's it. That's what people say. But it's not because suddenly you're using that. It's because the functioning of your vehicle, something has happened that has made you aware of the natural world being different than you thought it was. And once you're aware of that, it's like, that's the opening. And then, so what happens is, just like in the yoga thing I mentioned, where like before aligning someone's spine and making sure that they're, they have proper form in their exercising, or making sure that they even know what type of breath control they have, like before retraining and reforming a new foundation, it has to loosen up. It has to be feral. And then you, as the conscious awareness. You have to be, and the authority figure over this vehicle. Your conscious awareness and the authority over your vehicle have to become on the same team. They have to want to be on the same team at all times, because it feels, so like, let's just say that I just keep seeing that. It's interesting because I almost see like your very immediate people around you. And maybe it's your most immediate people, because this could be someone living alone, but you talk to like maybe 2 or 3 people about personal things sometimes. What an interesting spectrum. How fun to just like sense all of these different people who are like, I'm private, and these others who are like, yeah, I'm loud. Like, it's just so neat to go all over the place. Okay, so if you're talking to people, humans, that have not yet or are not yet experiencing their own awakening, it's kind of like, it would kind of be like you starting yoga and then telling them to do it and expecting them to have the same emotional acceptance of what you're physically aware. It's exactly like I said with my clients when I knew that they were going to think, well, this person's a little bit crazy. She's a little bit nutty to like think that I'm going to follow all of this stuff on the first day. And it's because I would just like talk so much in the first day throughout their physical motions, because it was almost like writing a sentence on a piece of paper so that later when they told me something during the next session, they knew exactly what it was that they were like experiencing. Anyway, I love doing that. That was fun. But this is that moment where when you become awakened, it's like that's your supple moment and you're open, but you have to reform your foundation. And so just think about that. Like if you're supple, that means that you're open to and aware of all frequencies out here, and you're aware in here. But you don't have to be emotionally accepting of every frequency all of the time. Oh my gosh, this is crazy, because it's like I started this reading thinking that the message was going to be about you being able to detach from an Okay. So I also just want to say that as a regular thing in my brain, acknowledging that the flesh is weak is simply acknowledging that temptation exists, and that's because it's easy to fall into negative if you're not intentionally reaching up to positive. It's very easy to do that. Peer pressure is a perfect example of that. It's easy to give in to the negative so that you don't have to experience the friction and the negative reactions to you trying to change it when they don't want to emotionally accept a higher level. They're physically aware of it already. What's your mouth gonna do? You cannot instill emotional acceptance in another person. But the word encourage is what I feel like they are trying to say to you out my mouth, where it's like I kept thinking about empowering other people, but that's not the word that I'm getting from them. It's like they want you to feel empowered in your ability to navigate through this, but you have to understand that that means you're the only one who's going to navigate through this. That's a lot of weight. That's a lot of pressure. And that's isolating, visibly. So when I say like the flesh is weak, I'm just saying like, as far as the emotional acceptance goes, that's a decision. That's a decision. And I think that this is how you're going to learn how to navigate, is recognizing that every single moment is an interaction. Even when you're sitting there just observing, then what are you doing in here? Then you're stagnating to observe. And that's not wrong. at the right time, right place, right time. But it's like you have this decision at all times to interact in a certain way. Funny, I've never said this before. I've always thought this and hoped it would come into a reading. It never does. But like, if you want to know, like if you're experiencing other people's energy, you're experiencing another time and place in your vehicle. So one of my favorite things is that like time, this is so silly. I don't care. I don't care how silly it is. Just do it. But it's like if you're interacting all of the time with time and space, you're interacting all of the time with time and space. You are, because you're a part of it. You're in it. You're like inserted. And it's like, if you're ever curious if you can manipulate your own experience in here, your interaction with time and space as it's occurring out here, just like wake up 10 minutes earlier one day. And especially if you don't like getting up, this is especially useful then. And use breath control and emotionally accept that you're going to experience time moving slowly for the next 10 minutes. And give yourself an opportunity to try to emotionally accept that time will be experienced slower for you. And like, I'm just curious if you're going to experience any type of different feeling because of it. If you're going to feel less rushed, because if we're breathing slowly, then your heart is already calming down. That's how we calm that down. But it's like, just consider that every moment is an interaction. What are you interacting with? And who and what frequency do you want to be interacting with? And it's like, at this point, I feel like what you need to understand is when like we talk to the humans that aren't going through it, just because we're open to all of it and that they may not think you're crazy. I feel like somebody needs to know that it's not always judgment that makes people feel triggered by this too. Which is interesting because being triggered can give you the right questions to ask. Strange. So to give in, yeah, okay. So I feel like this is going into the brain where it's like this is the same thing. It's like you're either feeding the low frequency by interacting with it. And if you're interacting with it, then you're producing it. That's all there is to that. You're accepting of it. Sorry. You're accepting and producing it. You have to interact. You're interacting all the time that you're alive. So this is your moment to be supple, but your vehicle in here is going to experience everything that you're now open to out here. So you can't really interact necessarily with another human about it and feel better unless they're a good listener and a good friend. So they just care about what you're going through yourself. And if that's not the vibe you get, another thing I thought when I started was, if you want to read people, read the room. You can read a room quicker than you can read people as soon as you're open. As soon as you are spiritually awakened, you may think that you're only sensing who you see and who's around you and who you are interacting with out loud because you can see them. So of course that's who you go to talk to about what you're experiencing in here. But you're experiencing it in here, and that's what needs your attention. Because having a solid foundation means your conscious awareness is aligning with your human. Your conscious awareness is in tune with the natural world around you being way more packed full than it feels before your awakening. And then it's like when you become emotionally accepting of authority in here, like when you emotionally accept that you're the one, you're like running your own ship. You are the captain. You are the captain of this ship. You know the word, I'm going to get to the brain thing. But it's like I looked up that word, encourage, because I felt pushed to. It was interesting. And I never really cared for it. I never really cared against it. I never really didn't like it. I just never really used that word. I never think encourage out my mouth and have it come out my mouth. But it's to instill courage. And I feel like that's the only way to gain a solid foundation once you've become open. It takes your strength of will to gain control and to rebuild a solid foundation. So I'm flashing, there's a couple of things. So one of them is, I'm flashing back to like when, okay, I don't know if it's Jonathan Walters? I don't know if it's Walters or Waters, but it was like one of my favorite quotes of all time is something that I think that he said. I wish I knew his name. I suck at names. But like it was some, I think he was an author and a comedian or something, but he said, if your ship does not come in, swim out to meet it. And I feel like this kind of seems like that moment. Like it kind of looks that way, where it's like, well, you've talked to this person, you've tried talking to this person, you've talked it out loud around this person, and it has left you with crappy feelings each time. And it's like, that's because they don't have the answer. The answer is for you to emotionally accept that you're the only gateway for the answer. You are the only one who can re-establish a foundation and who can decide what that foundation in here is going to interact with and when. And so this is where it's weird because it goes into the brain thing. And it does feel like a ship too, because I feel like the waves keep coming. Once you step up and in, the waves keep coming. There's a lot of need, as like all of you know. There's a lot of need in our human race. So this feels like that moment matters in your own brain, where it's like you need to keep control of your vehicle. And that means that you're going to have to take control of the things you see in your mind, but visualize it as your imagination. I just keep wanting to say imagination. Like the imagination is, it's feral. It's wild. It's a wild animal. Your imagination is the tool that gives you the power to create something into existence that did not exist before you created it because of your own mind. And it's like, if you have, the interaction is in your brain too. You are consciously aware inside of your brain. So just think about that. If you're going to humans and getting negative reactions, and you're experiencing negative reactions in here and negative reactions in here and negative reactions like all the time, to not knowing, to feeling chaotic, to feeling like I don't know how to just zone in. I feel like I'm open to it all and I don't know how to handle it. First of all, breathe like all the time. Breath control is your number one ticket to peace when it comes to this stuff. Because like if you have nothing else while you're open to everything out here, you have this. This is your home. This is your home. You should care how it feels to live inside of this home. So your imagination is like, it's free, but it can also fool you. Because if your imagination is the doorway to the high frequency creation and interacting with amazing things, it's also a doorway. So that means that's your opening to something swooping in and you believing it, just because you're the only one in control of your vehicle. So if you're consciously aware and you think, okay, this is my whole, like this is a whole vehicle thing. It's not just going to be dreams. It's not just going to be smells. It's not just going to be sounds. It may be one by one that you notice, but it's your whole vehicle. It's just, what do you pay attention to? What does your perspective look like from the inside out? Because that's how you're going to experience it. So this feels like someone has they're trying to instill courage in you, that you have the tools to gain control of this. You can navigate through this. You can do this. And that's something else. I just keep thinking like, I just kept wanting to think of like, what is the counter sentence when you're feeling less than, when you're feeling inferior, when you're feeling like I can't do this, I can't handle this. You're in there. You live here. You're the owner. You have to own it. And you have to own that thought that you had, and you have to slice it with a new one. You have to slice right through it with a stronger truth. It's only one little baby step up. All it is words, because you understand language. You understand words. So it's like whatever things matter to you, whatever words matter to you and affect you emotionally, that's a part of you learning how you interact with energy as a medium. Because triggers, like triggering things, can often be the things that make all a trigger does, I think, which it took a long time for me to like not, fear my own triggers. Yeah, for real, fear them. Because like, I would, for example, I would want to learn all about certain things, and I still do, where it's like, I will learn all about things that like the spiritual community would commonly talk about nowadays, and like certain things that religious communities would say. And really though, it's interesting because I'm talking about triggers, I'm talking about inferiority, and it's like the thing that triggers me about those things, I have to say the only trigger I have lingering is favoritism. It's this false sense of superiority over someone else, or being more seen by the light than someone else. Because we're either feeding the low frequency, stagnating to observe and experience, or we're reaching up. And that means interacting with the higher frequency. However we do it. And sometimes we reach up by meeting another living human where they are, so that we can be that little next step up for them. So the next step up, when you're feeling like I can't handle this, I can't do this, it is as simple as I can handle this. I was made to do this. Obviously, you were made to do this thing. This is making me think of so many odd things. But it's like you have that opportunity in every single moment. Just don't lose sight of that you are the one in control, and your discernment has to be the rule. It has to be the law. Your discernment can't be wishy-washy. It's important to make decisions. Like in this read the room thing, it feels like if you have learned, you have learned. One of the things I wrote down is that it's the favoritism thing. There is no favorite who's just an open channel. That bothers me so much. Like, I was born an open channel. Everybody is an open channel. It's just not everybody has it in their mind and can emotionally accept that what we visibly are channeling is not the only thing we're channeling. That's hard to emotionally accept until you experience it and you have a reason to emotionally accept it. And oftentimes that's enough experiences stacking up and being like, okay, I've got to do something here. And that's something else I keep thinking. I've heard many successful people say this, which is that the lesson repeats itself until you learn it. And every time it repeats itself, it gets harsher. I've heard people say that, where it's like, but you know what? The reality is that's because you're fighting against evolution. If the same lesson keeps repeating itself, it means that you're either feeding a low frequency to continue feeding itself or stagnating within it, instead of stepping up and having the courage to ask a question like why, the trigger thing. If you're triggered, triggers are such a perfect sign that you need to question something. You either need to question what's going on out here, and that's why it's pissing you off, sparking an emotional reaction, or you need to question something in here and be like, why is that reality that is indisputable triggering an emotional reaction in me? Because that is your way to navigate. See why it's like not always beneficial to just talk to people that you love and expect them to be right there with you. It's not about who accepts you for who you are as you navigate. This is more so about you navigating. That's it. Because whatever you do, and this is the other thing, I feel like I need to share this because it keeps coming into personal readings, and I feel like this needs to be shared with you. Because it is a hard road when you're going through this awakening and you're all alone and you don't think you're nuts, but you're scared you might be a little crazy. And then like certain people verify it outside of your family, but then your close-knit, intimate relationships are like thinking that you're just like a loon or want attention. I don't know. It's weird. But anyway, the flesh is weak. So anyway, when you are trying to balance this out, it's like give yourself that little, whenever you feel doubt, it's that little moment. Doubt is intelligent, but there's a little step above it. If you want to ask a new question, if you're comfortable sitting in a place of feeling disappointed, then continue asking the same people if they understand what you're going through. But the thing is, the reason they're trying to tell you to have courage through this is because they believe in you. And it's not visible what you're going through. So you're not necessarily going to see it visibly reflected back at you. And that's the whole point here. You're navigating through the invisible stuff, which is exactly what you were built to do. That's why I believe we have the acceptor block response. There's something a little strange that I have to say that I didn't know if I was going to say. Two strange things here. One of them, okay. This is back to that inferior thing. So like if you're having an inferiority type of complex, even as a medium, I don't know who that's for. That doesn't feel like it's for everybody, but somebody in here feels like that. Like that is, you know how they say children are susceptible in a house with creepy physical activity or paranormal activity? Whatever. It's all physical. It's all the natural world. They say kids are vulnerable, especially if they're emotionally depressed or sad. Yeah, because when you're sad and you're depressed, or when you're a child and you're vulnerable, you're usually insecure. Does that mean you're screwed up and emotionally wounded and messed up? No, that means you're a human child in need of security, in need of someone else to instill courage into your vehicle, that just because you're scared in the middle of the night and you think something might be in your closet, I'm here and you are safe. This body is safe because I told you it is. And we trust that. If we're lucky, right? Like not everybody gets that. Oh my gosh, I even know people that are going to see this that didn't. Oh, see, that's it. This is your moment to stop judging yourself and to stop seeing yourself the way that the world has always made us think we have to see ourselves, where we're like, okay, get it straight. Hurry up, hurry up, hurry up, hurry up. That's not how you were designed this way. Like that's not how you became this way and had a perspective up until your spiritual awakening. It took time and experiences to form your perception as it was. So it's like time and experiences are reforming your perception as it's now going to be. And it's like this time, that insecurity, that insecure feeling, it's overwhelming, especially when you're like an adult and you don't know how to fill that. And I feel like that's why oftentimes we'll go to people who are closest to us, because it's not necessarily that we're seeking validation or like to be blown up. It's more so that we just need a sense of security somewhere, that we're not losing control. And you know, this is weird, but it makes me think of no. Very strange. I feel like I just keep hearing the word imagination. Like I literally just keep hearing it in my head. And I feel like trust. You have to, oh my gosh, this is your time to learn who you are. Supple. You've got to learn how you are handling different frequencies. And that's going to take breath control, because what you're going through, even though everything seems like chaos out here, that's just symptomatic of what's going on in here. And so this is why the brain is so important too. I feel like some people in here need to know that if you choose not to trust, oh my gosh, it's inferiority. If you don't trust yourself to navigate through what your vehicle is naturally experiencing as a part of the natural world, then it is because your conscious awareness emotionally accepts being inferior to your human vehicle. That is step one. You decide that you are the owner of this house, and that you alone decide what comes in, what goes out, and nothing low frequency that makes you feel, that brings you emotional acceptance about feeling inferior to your own human experience. Anything that does that is low frequency. So if that's blocking you, that's why I kept thinking the flesh is weak. Because if that's blocking you from establishing something new and trusting yourself to do that, they're saying that's what you have to unlock first. You know, even as we do this, we interact with dead people. If you lose someone close to you and you've been interacting with past loved ones, like, you know that you still don't get to just talk to them if you have emotion that is low frequency. You still don't get to just skip out on the grief because you're like, well, death is not the end. Hallelujah. Yeah, that's great. But the flesh has to erupt truth. If it's low frequency, it needs to come out because it's not supposed to be, it's not worth your lifetime to carry it. So that's why I think it's important for someone to know a couple of things. The flesh is weak. That's cool. That's fine. That just gives you something to stand on. That just gives you solid awareness to accept that, of course, I feel uncomfortable and I'm triggered by every single thing about all of these other people thinking that I'm nuts for what I'm going through. I'm already insecure in my own self with this. Of course. And that's the whole point here. They're like, you need to have courage and believe in yourself in a way that you've never done before. Like, this is new. So it needs to be. And that's the other part of this. They cannot create emotional acceptance inside of you. We have a choice. That's why I believe we have the accept or block response, which is part of it, is the sympathetic nervous system. That is so naturally activated that it's like, isn't it odd that we react like that? And then the parasympathetic nervous system has to do with breath control. So whenever you are overwhelmed and out of control, it's because your vehicle is used to not having control. Your conscious awareness has full power to say one line in that brain to reach up instead. Be the next step up. Even as simple as, I can do this. Say it out loud. Like, I have looked like a nut so many times in my house just trying to convince myself to do readings when I have like weird, unhappy feelings about it. Or if like I'm worried about having to go into something because I don't want to experience somebody who's lost a child. Things that I fear. My human still fears experiencing these things because they're possible. Anyway, but I don't want to emotionally accept it. That's my point. But I fight through that because it's for the high frequency. It's aligned with the high frequency because I can handle it. Because our vehicle can handle it. Even if you don't want to, your vehicle can handle emotion. Okay, so the one line can be, I can do that. Like, I can do this. I can do this. I can do this. Use that to slice through the thought of self-doubt. When you hear yourself in your own head thinking, well, she can do that because, well, he can do that. Well, I can't do that. Well, I always have this. Well, this is how I feel about it. This has always happened to me. Every single time that happens, slice through it with your own voice. Like, that's the point here is for you. And I keep seeing a card that like I don't even have physically near me right now, but I keep seeing a card where it looks like these stars are just like shooting up. And I feel like that's what you do. That's how you counter it. You fight the good fight. You're the good fight. Consciousness, your awareness, that's you. You are the good fight. All you need is to know you have the fire, and then that's what's going to retrain this vessel, reclaim this vessel. And that's another thing that's important. I don't know what this is about. Like, yes, I do, but I don't know who is in need of all of this intricate stuff. But like the brain, you start reaching up in your brain. The brain is not, it is the example. It's an example organ. It doesn't just tell your body what it's experiencing. It doesn't just have this weird narrative in there that you float around in. It is an example of functioning to all the other organs throughout your body. So it would make sense that when your brain is like, I'm smelling things that aren't there. I'm hearing things that aren't there. I'm seeing things that aren't there. I'm feeling like I'm mentioning these people's past loved ones, and for some reason it's aligning. It's really freaking me out. Or I'm saying these weird sentences that are not my actual vocabulary. It's someone's passed on who knows the person I'm seeing today. Those things are all happening because it starts and it just goes all throughout your vehicle. It's everywhere. Nothing that happens in your brain doesn't involve anything to do with your spinal cord. Like spinal cord and brain are interacting with your consciousness. So it's like your brain becoming aware. It's going to make it so the rest of your body is aware too. But the only decision maker is you. You're the only decision maker for your entire human vehicle. You're the only one who can decide, even though I want and feel the need to go talk to these people or to call this person and just like vent about how insane this is or just try to find the answers again. It's like practice your own connection to your own body using breath control. And just remember that you are interacting at all times. When you feel chaotic and all of that is going on, all you have to do is consciously tell yourself, think it. You tell your own brain, I can do this. We're going to calm this down. This is too much at one time. I'm not dealing with all of that. We're going to push that out. I'm going to have a good day today. I'm going to go buy a book. I'm going to go get a candle. Like, I'm going to go to the zoo. Whatever it is that builds you up, that gives you, that makes you feel empowered, like, do that. And also, it's like the balancing of the masculine and the feminine. There's a lot of stuff about that. I hear a lot of stuff about that. And I haven't found a physics book that says masculine and feminine energy yet. So like, I'm not going to pretend to know everything on that. But as far as this reading goes, it feels so much to me like the physical is the masculine. Your words are the masculine. What you do with what you're experiencing, that's physically in your control. But the emotional acceptance, that's physical too. It's more feminine. So it's like you have to accept inside, and that feeling comes down. And then you get to be lifted up. But you have to sink into your vehicle in order to push something positive out. So when you're feeling bombarded, it's like the only person that can stand up is you. That's it. Where you can be like, nah, that's too much. I'm not going to feel that way. Use your voice. It's physical. It's a vibration. It's a vibration. If you can feel everybody else's energy in the air, you are entitled to feel your own above it if you need them to be quiet. Like, take back power. So cute. It's like, I feel like the whole reading is about being empowered, but I feel like they're just so politely and forcefully saying, you can do it. Like, only you are the only one who can believe you can do it. And you have free will. No one decides who you talk to about it but you. It's just you have to fight that moment. One more thing I want to say and then I have to run. If you detach from that interaction of needing them to hear and receive what it is you're going through and what you say, and needing them to give you something back, the expectation, oftentimes that need for security, we have this accidental feeding into the negative when we go to a place where we're kind of worried they won't give it to us right anyway. It's like that's where this is going to feel uncomfortable. And that's where that quote comes in. If the ship does not come in for you, then swim out to meet it. Like, this is your ship. And once you're awakened, you don't owe anybody. You don't owe anybody because you've needed this your whole life. I don't care what anybody says. It's needed. Like, we need this interaction to be clear, because without that, we're just not aware of our own intelligence. Like, that's what it is. You are the intelligent vehicle. Your consciousness has to decide it's worth whatever you have to be physically aware of in this crazy moment to learn, okay, what do I want to emotionally accept, though, that I am physically aware of? And what do I want to do when I'm uncomfortably surrounded by things I don't want to accept? Just let your voice be there. Let your voice reach up. Yeah, because once you start asking questions, once you start diving in and you're like, I'm open, then it is pretty hard to sit in stagnation and observation without taking time in your days to practice breath control. Like, practice breath control and do it with the intention of gaining physical control over your human vehicle, so that you can control what you do with information. And that breath control sort of calms down that chaotic supple moment where you're so open to everything out here. But it's like that breath control and meditation, that's where you can sort of take that moment to be like, okay, I just need to see what's going on. But in order to have peace in here and to sit in the center of it, that cannot be instilled inside of you from another person. That can only come from your own doing internally. And all it takes is a decision that you're going to do every teeny tiny little step to gain that control. And you can. So, okay, I'll leave it at that. I hope this is beneficial. Let me know if this is helpful in the comments. And I'm just really excited about how these are going, because it's becoming more aligned with how I actually like to articulate it on my own, which is fun because that's what I'm working with other people on, like them doing the same. So if you're starting new channels, feel free to stick that in my comments too, because I think it's really neat to see what you're doing. All right. Have a good rest of your day or night whenever you see this, and I hope to see you in